Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This week, I'll be sharing about happiness and ease in meditation. And it's this radical idea that it feels good to be here, to be present, rather than to be constantly pushed and pulled away by the mind in the past, in the future. But rather, this presence of mind gives rise to this joy and in time and ease that makes it easier to stay with the breath, makes the wandering mind less enticing because there's a certain goodness that's coming about, and that can help stabilize the mind. So I will start with a 15-minute guided meditation, and then I'll offer some thoughts and some sharing on the topic. So just finding any way to sit that feels comfortable for you. If it feels good, you can close your eyes, or you can just rest your gaze on the floor in front of you. Just have a soft gaze, not really focused on anything. For some people, that's easier. And just setting the intention that for this next 15 minutes, we're just going to be here. We can put down having to be anyone, not having to go anywhere. And take a few longer, slower, deeper breaths just to kind of settle in here at your own pace. And then allowing the breath to return to normal. And just feeling the weight of the body for a moment, sensing into the contact points with your seat. Feeling this gentle force of gravity, which is keeping us here, rooted, grounded. And let's take a few breaths just from and into the lower half of the body. So breathing into the legs, breathing into the feet. This helps ground the mind, give it some stability. Allowing the body to breathe all on its own. We'll begin to soften and open and relax the body. Softening the muscles of the forehead, the face, softening the thinking mind and allowing the jaw to relax. Seeing if there's any tension in the throat. Seeing if the shoulders can just roll back or release just a little bit. All around this upright spine, if that's possible for you. Feeling into the weight of the arms and the hands. Letting go of needing to hold on. Sensing each in-breath and out-breath in the chest as it opens the rib cage and releases on the exhale. Sensing into the back of the rib cage as an inhale and an exhale. And now breathing into the lower belly. Softening and releasing with each exhale. And just already noticing that this awareness is becoming more and more rooted in the body and the breath. Connecting to the sit bones, points of contact again, softening the thighs, the muscles of the calves and the shins, and softening the feet. Sensing just a wide awareness of this body and tuning into the breath, the process of breathing, just in any way that feels supportive for you. And that might be just the whole body kind of breathing, a wide awareness. Perhaps it's the breath at the nose, or the chest, the opening of the heart area, or maybe the lower belly, feeling that expansion and contraction in the lower abdomen. Just noticing what feels most supportive to help settle and ground the mind into the rhythm of breathing. And for this next minute, just noticing, paying close attention to the end of the out-breath. Sensing into the release and perhaps even slight pause. And if the mind is thinking, it's no problem. We can just allow it to think in the background as we tune in to this breath. And in particular, the release at the end of the out-breath. The full letting go that happens at the end of each exhalation. Just noticing any space in the thinking mind. Noticing any gaps or pauses between the thoughts. And what is awareness like? What is the mind like? The quality of it in your direct experience, in the gaps. It's fully here. In this body and breath, just noticing this uncontrived quality of awareness. Don't have to manufacture it. There's nothing to do. But we can rest in this quality of mind The nature of awareness is open, receptive, and spacious, fully present. So just tuning into this quality of awareness and presence of mind, which is already there. Beneath the thoughts, even beneath the one who is meditating, there's just this simple and profound presence of mind, which can bring a deep joy to the heart. To find this place of rest. Noticing the inhalation, the lift, the inspiration which comes to the body, especially when the mind is present. And let's allow the body to relax and the mind to relax just a bit further into a sense of ease or peace. Recognizing that right now there's no one to be. There's nowhere to go. The heart, the awareness can simply come to rest, allowing this gentle rhythm of the breath to keep the mind stable and steady. Noticing this innate quality of ease, which is imbued in awareness itself. Deep down at the roots of the mind, this awareness has no preferences. It is patient. It's allowing and very receptive. From this ease and peace, thoughts can just come and go. When the mind is rooted in this body and breath and resting in this easeful awareness, the thoughts can become less captivating, less enticing, because there's happiness. A more subtle and sustainable form of joy and happiness, which comes from this non-doing. Spending this last minute breathing through the heart and taking in a sense of appreciation for having taken the time to just sit still and breathe. So thank you for taking the time to sit still and to practice. And I just wanted to share some further thoughts on this joy and happiness, which has kind of a different flavor maybe from the happiness that comes from excitement or pleasures of the senses. And this is what really fuels me in my own personal practice, was the discovery of this early on, of this very sustainable, self-arising happiness and ease of mind that comes from non-efforting. It was kind of a revolutionary thing for me to realize of I can feel quite good actually from doing pretty much absolutely nothing. If it didn't feel good, I don't think I would still be here meditating so many years later. And I don't think you would be sitting here wanting to meditate if something about it didn't feel good, at least a little bit. So whether it's in my car or on my cushion or wherever in my day, sometimes even sitting at my desk, I try to find time to come back to this because it gives my mind space and quite a bit more clarity. And I'm going to talk about two different kind of flavors of meditative happiness in the early Buddhist tradition. These are called piti, which is like a joy, and sukha, which is more of this, more of an easeful, some say even a bliss that comes in meditation. And then how these can be beneficial for working with the thinking mind. So the most simple way that joy comes about is from being in the present moment. From simply staying with the breath, the mind begins to release from preoccupations and begins to discover it feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to just be here, to not have to pick something up in this moment. And there's almost an energetic quality that can come about, like an enthusiasm and a zeal that can come about in meditation. And this is to be encouraged. This is said to be an onward leading form of happiness, something that makes us want to meditate more because the mind starts to get a taste of something that feels quite good and, as I said earlier, effortless. I think everyone can relate to some form of this through either maybe reading a book. When you're completely focused and really in the book that you're reading, there's a certain joy that can come from just sitting there for an hour or 2 hours enraptured in the story. And I think part of why that feels good is because the mind isn't picking up the things that it's distressed about, its preoccupations or worries. Is there in that story, and that presence of mind is kind of what we're talking about here. Another way I think of this joy is it's this clarity of presence that can sometimes come about from the first couple sips of coffee or a tea in the morning. There's this lift and interest and clarity, and that can arise not just through the coffee, but through actual seated meditation as well. And so using the breath, the mind can tap into this kind of a joy naturally. And as the mind becomes embodied, uses the breath, uses the body, it also taps into the energetic system of the body, this nervous system, which permeates throughout all of our limbs, our legs, our toes, our fingers. And so there's this deep presence in the body as well. And that there can be this sense of the body coming to life in a more full way. Some people get goosebumps or tingles or things like that as they become deeper in their meditation practice. And it's kind of the joy of this mind and body coming together in a sense of unification. There's a teacher who who I follow quite closely, Ajahn Sucitto, and I went to a meditation retreat and with him, he was teaching it, and I had never seen him before, but listened to his talks for years. And I came into the meditation hall early just to get my space. I wanted to sit up front like someone at a rock concert. I wanted to get my spot. And I came in and I didn't know he was there. And then I kind of turned and I saw him and he was just standing looking at some art on the wall. And I immediately, I felt my spine, just this chill go up my spine. And it was just something about the presence of this person. And these are things that started to make me very curious about meditation. Why is it that I just see this person and I'm around their presence and something in me lights up? And I also began to notice on the second day of the retreat that he would give us instructions. He would sit and then he'd say, okay, you can go and walk and come back, sit freely as you like, And so I'd sit and I'd go for a walk and I'd come back and I'd go for another walk and come back, and he would still be there, still meditating, like 3 hours later. And I just became very curious as to what was happening in his meditation practice. Clearly, there was some joy, some happiness that he was getting from this. And then he would open his eyes and start speaking again from that place. Something that was very inspirational for me. And then I wanted to talk about the second form of happiness, ease, that is said to arise out of the joy. So there's this joy that arises, maybe some sort of uplift, clarity, presence of mind, and that's said to kind of generally fade into something that's more easeful and sustainable, which is called sukha. And this is this kind of classic shift that the Buddha taught, that first there's kind of this interest, focus, there's this happiness, this upwelling, and then that evolves into a more calmer, sustainable form of happiness. And this is something that can take place perhaps in the single meditation practice, or also over years of practice. I know for myself, some of the more energetic qualities of happiness can be a part of almost this purification in the emotional world. There's this upwelling as the mind is starting to feel things that haven't been felt, process them, and over time, there's this kind of excitement in the body that sometimes feels uncomfortable, evolves into something more calm and sustainable as the body is working through some of the tension, maybe repressed emotions. There's this long-term release as well. So the breath can begin to calm and soften, almost like massage through the emotional and the energetic qualities of the nervous system. The Buddha said that thinking of this was central to his shift in his meditation practice. He was trying very hardcore practices before his enlightenment, starving himself, not eating food, kind of self-torture practices that were common at the time. People were very serious about that. The body was, because it experienced such pleasures, was not going to get you to freedom. And so freedom was through leaving the body behind. And as the Buddha was kind of near the end of his rope, had this memory of sitting under this tree and just in the shade of the tree and watching his father. It was the harvesting time. They were harvesting. And he remembered this very simple kind of just peace and ease that he had experienced as a child. And this was said to completely transform the way he practiced. He realized, I don't have to suffer. This doesn't have to be something really intense. I can use this gentle ease of the mind to move forward and to penetrate deeply into the nature of my own suffering and to free the heart and mind. So as the mind progresses from a happiness to a calm, it becomes easier to be able to see thoughts come and go. I know for myself, when I first came to meditation practice, it was very difficult when I would receive that instruction to just watch the thoughts come and go, just arise and pass like clouds. And I was like, I am just thinking. There is no room for them to come and go. Like, it's just thoughts. And I think that's often what's missing is this sense of happiness and ease. And that for me has only come through patience, of course, and really leaning into the breath, allowing the body to breathe as it wants to, and sensing into these little gaps and allowing them to grow. A little bit of peace, a little bit of happiness, and a leaning into that, allowing that to grow. And this allows for a much deepening, over time, a slow deepening of mindfulness of breathing. And the mind begins to see how good it feels to stay in the presence. And it becomes easier to watch these thoughts come and go with a sense of equanimity. One of the metaphors that can be used for this is like sitting off to the side and watching cows in a pasture. There's no need to really, they're not going anywhere too quick. Just the idea is to kind of just keep an eye on them. So there's some degree of focus, but there's some space too. There's some space and some contentment. I think for me, after some time in doing this, it's not that my mind has stopped thinking, but I've just become kind of disinterested. Like I'm good. I don't need to pick up that thought for the 6,451st time. Like I've done it so many times. I've gone there so many times. So there's a sense of dispassion that can start to come. And it's also a result of the happiness. Because the mind feels content, because the mind feels at ease, it can let things go a little bit easier. And through this practice over time, it can lead to deep insight where the mind begins to let go all on its own. It begins to see how good it feels to be here in the present. It begins to see the friction from being tangled up in how things could be, should be different, in the craving and attachment. And so instead of having to let go as if it was an action that the mind has to do, it actually begins to let go on its own because it sees the suffering and the anguish of picking things up, and it sees the freedom of release, of presence of mind, of being here. So this is what I wanted to cover today, and I hope you find it some way beneficial. Finding some form of happiness in your practice, I think, can really help support a long-term practice. It's not all about suffering. So I just want to encourage you to find those little morsels or whatever it is that you experience in your practice that you love about it. Acknowledge that, take that in, allow the mind to soak in it. And over time, it can give space from the thinking mind and lead to deeper insight. So thank you for so much for taking the time to practice, to listen, and I hope to see you again soon. Be well.